Hey, I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. I'm not sure how you found us, but I want to let you know that we have made it as easy as possible for you to find, follow, and share this podcast with as many people as possible. All you have to do is type in Community Solutions, and we're in the Apple iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, we're on Spotify, and as usual, you can find it out on YouTube or by going directly to podbabble.com, a great podcast network that we're part of. So go out there and go nuts, because the more that you share this information, the greater opportunity that you have to change your community. So thank you again for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Push back the square now that you need her, and you throw. Well, there you go. Because back in school, we are the leaders of all. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter. It is opening day of baseball. At least, well, when we're recording this, it is.
True.
So.
I don't even know if the Twins won or lost. It's okay. We'll find out after the show.
Yeah.
We got too much to do here to worry about that. Jay, I have to bring up one thing before we get into our little subject. You know what I've been watching on television a lot lately?
Yeah.
Now, you know my wife and I are obsession with Dr. Phil.
Right.
Watching that. I have been watching a lot of old game shows.
Ooh.
Like I've gotten into the
like
match
the Gong
game.
Show?
No,
Or-
like the match game and the original Family Feud with Richard Dawson as the host.
yeah.
And I
Okay.
remember him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who I've been trying to think all day of the guy who killed himself, who was the host after. That I remember watching when I was like a teenager.
Oh,
But
my.
really short guy. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
It's just been a mental block. But anyhow.
Yeah.
So I've been watching Match Game. I must be. Okay. Now, Match Game, Gene Rayburn, the old host who passed away a long time ago.
Yeah.
And they have celebrities there. They're all dead. It's where Richard Dawson first came with Charles Nelson Riley. And I think Betty White's the only one I saw on there that's still alive. But I must be the only person under like 80 years old who watches that.
That's probably true.
Because the commercials is like watching the nightly news. You know, where every commercial is Viagra and hemorrhoid cream and other kinds of butt ointment.
Right.
And it's just sort of like, what the heck? Am I the old? I need one of those boxes. Remember those old boxes where they figured out the television ratings or whatever if you
Yes.
had one? I need one of those so we get new commercials on it's called the Buzzer Network. And I need some new commercials on them. It's not even the Game Show Network. Buzzer is what it's called.
Wow.
It's got the old Match Game, which I never saw. Maybe that's why I like it. I don't remember it being on when I was a kid.
No, I don't think it was.
No, so that's been my latest thing is watching old game shows on watching Richard Dawson kiss everybody on Family Feud, and so that's my new thing from last week to this week is watching Match Game.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched it.
Oh, it's a good show.
Huh.
I mean, it's back when $500 was winning like $1 million.
Right.
So
It's like people tried to get on the $10,000 pyramid because it was like this
Dick
exorbitant
Clark.
amount of money.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like the Family Feud. I mean, they were playing for $5,000, and I'm like, $5,000 with 5 people?
I know. It's like
Wouldn't even make my rent.
what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, if I have to pay taxes on it, it's like it's like making a car payment. Anyway, so that's my new thing in the last week is I've been watching old game shows. I even flip-flopped between old game shows and the Twins game today when I was prepping for the show.
Oh.
Before I came here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my new thing in the last week.
Wow. That's
Pretty sad.
yeah. I'm glad you said that, not me. But
Speaking of sad, we have our subject today.
oh boy, is it sad.
It is really, I think it's tragic. Let me say one thing quick. I think it's tragic what's happening in American schools. You and I haven't spent a lot of time talking about education, even though I very much consider it a local issue.
Absolutely.
Me, anyway. And, but we spend a lot of our time on cities, a little less on counties, but some. Education, we've done a show or two on. I know we did a voucher show last year.
Mm-hmm.
But what's happened in American schools is just sad. I can't blame anyone in particular, but I think our education compared to other nations is awful.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to say it.
That's true. I mean, you know, I know people that have come here from other countries and they speak English. They speak their native tongue. Sometimes, like, I know some people from the Congo. They speak their native tongue, Lingala. They speak French. They're not great at English when they come, but they pick it up pretty quick. I mean, some of them speak like 3, 4, 5 languages. You know, we're lucky to, you know, we speak English okay.
Well, there's North Dakotian.
Right.
You know, there's forms of English.
And then we've taken 2 years of foreign language at some point in order to graduate, but none of us remember it.
I remember a little Spanish. I think I took 4 years of Spanish. I remember a little hablo.
Yeah.
Here and there.
No, and you know.
Donde está the baño?
And because, you know, I have friends that are from the Congo. I have made sure to brush up on my French, and I'm okay. I speak it okay, you know.
Oui, oui.
But
Bonjour. I can't
that's
speak
good.
French.
Yeah. All right.
I found in studying languages, it's one thing to learn it on paper. It's another thing to speak it in a conversation.
It is. You know, I am a much better reader in another language than I am, not necessarily even a speaker, but like as a listener.
Yeah.
In French, I'm constantly like, you know, I cannot keep up. Like my brain can't keep up with.
Here's what you can't
interpreting it into
you can't
English.
Translate it. And you just know it or you don't. I mean,
right.
Think about if somebody and it's spoken so much faster than it is if it's, you know, written down. It's like, can you write that down? What you just said? Maybe I could. Like when I was good at Spanish back in high school, if I had it written, I could probably figure it out based on the other words in a sentence what was said, even if I didn't know all the words.
Right.
But if I heard it and spoke it, like, you know. Que pasa, Pedro? Blah, blah, blah. You know,
wow.
After that, I lost it. I was like, I have no idea. But, you know, your larger point is true about just the volume of school that other countries do and the expectations there. And it's not about spending money. This is where it's not about free college. That's such baloney.
Right.
When you really think about why something happens. But we're going to get into, and you've probably heard it, something called the achievement gap, which is the gap, and there's actually a couple different, according to the public school elitists, there's a couple different achievement gaps. There's the one between the honkies, us white people, and quote-unquote minorities, however that's defined.
Right.
There's students that are quote-unquote mixed. There's students from who are Asian, who are black, or who are Hispanic, whatever. Minorities tend to get clumped together, like they're all carbon copies of each other. And then there is the gap between the supposed gap between poorer kids, and kids who live in quote unquote rich neighborhoods, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. How that's defined, which I think is insane, and we'll talk about that. Okay. But the gap does exist, Jay. And I'm wondering a question.
Okay.
Let me propose a question before we even look at any numbers, because the numbers are confusing. They're all over the place. First off, it depends on how you define it. Okay. What's a gap in achievement? So we all know that every solution to the public schools is done in a one-size-fits-all fashion. That's the mandates from above that every school is going to implement, this math policy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of does that. And, is the achievement gap, is it test scores? Is it graduation rates? Is it dropout rate? I mean, what is the best measure of how kids are achieving? And that right there, to me, is an open question, and it probably is school to school, district to district.
Yeah, it probably is.
So how do we measure it? I mean,
I don't know. And then, we want to turn out really smart, well-rounded kids. And there's something about measuring that gap, I guess, towards a high school graduation and what happens after then. Somebody that's going on to be a doctor obviously needs a different skill set than somebody that wants to be a mechanic, than somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur, than somebody that wants to be a plumber. And all of those things are okay to be.
Right, but you've got a problem right away.
Yeah.
Public schools are not geared towards somebody who wants to be a mechanic.
I know.
You don't learn that in public schools. There was a time you did.
Yeah.
You don't anymore.
Well, I think, like in the Robbinsdale district, I think Armstrong still has.
Do they? Okay, I know Cooper doesn't.
Yeah.
They did. I don't even think they did when I was there. I don't
know if it's a class or a club.
I don't remember I don't even remember. I took shop when I went to Hosterman.
Yeah.
I took some woodworking and stuff. I don't recall that at Cooper. Maybe it was an elective and I didn't take it. I don't remember because I took Spanish and Phi-Ed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Accounting, I took that as alternatives. So maybe there wasn't enough time in my day to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I interrupted you. But I guess I'm saying, how can a school prepare anybody for any career? Isn't that in and of itself part of the problem?
It is. And if you look into our history with public education going all the way back, even to like Thomas Jefferson, and that there needed to be a standard for what they call a liberal arts education, where it kind of makes you a well-rounded human being. It allows you to be able to do math at a certain level, allows you to be able to read and comprehend at a certain level, to be able to communicate with others. These are the staples that our educational system was founded upon, and I don't disagree with the need for that at all. We don't want to be turning out illiterate people that can't read. We don't want to be turning out people that aren't able to balance a checkbook, that don't know how government works. I think civics is a super important part of the education system that we don't give enough attention to anymore. Biology, all that stuff. It's good to know how the world works around you. To say that that's some sort of box, then, though, that they can put you in and say, well, you're going to be successful, you're not going to be successful, you're going to be somewhere in the middle of the road because of how you do with that stuff and how that kind of tracks you for a career later in life is just dumb.
Well, that's true. I know a lot of great mechanics who wouldn't win spelling contests, but let me tell you, they can fix a car anytime. But that comes back to the one-size-fits-all approach. How do you create Armstrong or Cooper High School to cater to any possible, because I'm a big fan of things like trade schools like Dunwoody and things like that. I think some of them have more value than traditional four-year colleges. I think places like Hennepin Tech are underutilized. That if you look at where shortages are in today's job market, it's mechanics, electricians, people like that. There's real shortages. Those are good-paying jobs. They're not right. You're not going to be making $13 an hour, and they can't fill people because that skill set is not being learned. And I can even go back to myself. I mean, I learned more in Cub Scouts in the garage with my dad than I ever learned in a school about anything like that. And half the time he spent ticked off throwing tools against the wall. So, I mean, but I mean, that's where I think of learning how to change a tire and learning how to just do all sorts of things out in the... We were always building stuff, and he'd fix my bike, and it was... I feel like the kids who have a passion to do that, I don't know what their path is anymore in your average public school. I mean, what's their path? You talk about college readiness, which is a big soccer mom term that they love hearing. College readiness. And it's like, well, what they're talking about is a 4-year college.
Right. They're not talking about a 2-year trade school
right.
for the most part.
They're not pretty much at all.
Right.
I mean, they're pretty much college readiness. It's your ACTs. It's your class,
PSATs.
Yeah. For somebody who's going to, like you said, go on to be a teacher or a doctor or, whatever you need for a 4-year, call it accountant, whatever. And I think some of those kids are maybe not even finding out that they're good at or interested in it.
Right, and it bleeds over to everything. I mean, even if you look at, say they push you over the ASVAB test, for, where do you fit in the military? It's often pitched to them as, hey, you can get money for college. Well, what about somebody that just, they like the military and that's where they want to be? It doesn't really prepare you for that. Again, you could be in communications in the military. You can be in a mechanic of some kind.
And you could discover something you love in the military, too, and change your mind. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. I mean, they want to put kids on a track. And
they want to do it at way too young of an age.
Kids don't know what to do. Young. My middle kid... just went into college this year. He doesn't know what he wants to do, and that's okay.
Dude, I was clueless when I was 18.
It's okay.
I was like, where's the nearest party? Class gets in the way of...
Yeah, not everybody's like me. I mean, I knew I wanted to play music from age 5.
Yeah.
That was my track. But
my track was to play baseball. But, arm surgery at 17 ruined that.
Yeah.
I didn't have a backup. I was a kid.
Right.
I didn't have a backup plan. But to put a kid on a track when they're... in elementary or middle school is just, wait a minute, they haven't even learned all the basics yet.
Right. In middle school, I mean, you haven't taken chemistry. You haven't...
Algebra. Maybe you've taken that if you're advanced a little. I seem to remember doing that in 8th grade. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, probably. But let's say, you get put on a track where it's like, oh, you'd make a great social worker, but then you fall in love with chemistry, or you fall in love with physics when you get into those classes, and it's like,
biology,
or maybe you don't even get to figure that out because you're not on that track.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and getting back to the achievement gap, I just want to point out, I wrote something on our Community Solutions website. I just got on our blog.
That's at COMMsolutionsMN.com.
It is.
Yes.
I called it a little fuzzy math because, quite frankly, they throw so many numbers at you. I can't make heads or tails of them.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw my hands in the air and say things aren't getting a whole lot better. Okay? No. I mean, here's the thing. This is from the Sun Post. It's in early March, but it doesn't matter. The statewide, now this is in graduation rates. Right. And I have no idea if that's the best way to me, a high school diploma is getting less and less meaningful.
Right.
So I'm not sure that that's a good... And I don't know if this is people who graduated on time I graduated in June of 1995, and I was supposed to.
Right.
I know some classmates who graduated that summer. Or who went back and got their GED, or graduated in December, or whatever.
I'm sure this doesn't count GEDs.
Probably not.
Right.
And Cooper was much bigger when I was there than it is now. But here is the graduation rates. As a state, the gap, so I'm talking the percentages, have shrunk from 26.5% to 18.7% from 2002 to 2012. So that's 7.8% over 5 years. Nothing to get too excited about.
Right.
It's still way too many kids not graduating. The governor issued his predictable statement about it, underscoring the improvements in early education. Really? Improvements in early education? Governor, these folks just graduated. So I don't think early education policies that you put in had anything to do with this.
No.
And, of course, no one challenges the governor's statement. The Republicans all sit there and suck their thumb. They don't say a word. And then the education commissioner, I'll tell you what, how about this for some coded language? We have so much more work to do to ensure all children have equitable opportunities and receive the support they need in order to graduate on time and ready for life. Let me translate that. More money, lower class size, early ed.
Yeah.
Now, that's what she's saying. Of course, we won't call it spending. No, we'll call it an investment.
Yeah.
Remember, spending's that's no longer spending. I mean, President Obama, I think, was the one who perfected this. We're going to have some investment in roads and bridges and in some health care and some green energy because there's a lot to do. Mm-hmm. All right, that was pretty good.
That wasn't bad.
And that's what it is. It's investment. We're going to get our money back somehow, Jay, with return.
Wow. Well, I'm waiting for the check.
So you're going to put that in your 401k? You're going to put some education investment in there? Now let's check out the Robbinsdale district. Now, here's where the numbers get all effed up, and you can't follow them from A to Z. But you'll be glad to know that the graduation achievement, of Black and African American students, which account for 30% of the district's graduation eligible student body. I get that right? Mm-hmm. In a 5-year span, went from 68 to 70%, Jay.
Wow.
That 2% a point, what is that? 0.4% a year? Once again, I didn't ask you what 1,000 times 11 was.
If this is our education investment dollars at work, think about
that's early childhood.
What was that per year? 0.4?
0.4%.
That is slightly better than a savings account at a bank.
Yeah, it's between
How's
a savings
that for an investment?
Between a savings account and a CD. I think it's somewhere in between that. So yeah, I mean, a government bond does better than that. Caucasian students, we'll call them, actually had a slight decline, but it doesn't say from what to what, is now at 87%. So what is that? 1 out of 7, 1 out of 8 white students are not graduating?
Yeah.
At least on time. I assume that's what that means.
Right.
So if you follow those numbers, whites have gone from 86 to 88 over 5 years, another 2% jump.
Ooh.
So the gap has, and that's statewide. All right, look, if you're scoring at home, I'm sorry. Okay, so statewide we've gone from 28 to 23, so that's 1% a year. Now, let me ask you this. This is the question I posed on the blog. If we were getting a 1% increase in GDP a year, we'd consider that a recession.
Yeah.
So what is that as far as some sort of then they go on and on about dropout rates. Well, obviously, if you're not graduating, you're dropping out. So just flip the numbers. Not that hard, but there's like 8 paragraphs of stuff. And then, of course, they talk about free and reduced lunch. Those kids who are starving to death and how they can't achieve in the public schools, which is just code language to me to lower expectations and try to not try to find some excuse. Because I don't think poor kids are dumb.
No.
I think poor poor
Not at
kids
all.
are very capable. I think we rush to label kids and make assumptions based on
Yeah.
their parents' occupation.
I'm going to tell you this. There are a ton of kids that are in poor families, and a lot of them are minority kids. They're the ones who are making money flipping shoes. They're the ones that are out there making money flipping stuff that they buy at the dollar store, that they're the ones who seem to be understanding how to work hard and hustle, whether legitimately or illegitimately, to be able to turn a profit and make things work. I mean, they don't realize it because they're not taught this, but like ideologically, they're a lot closer to you and I than they are to the people that are providing them the free and reduced lunch.
Yes, without a doubt. And I would add, you take a kid who's like 5 years old
Yeah.
and put them in the at-risk category. How can you do that to a kid who's 5 years old?
Yeah.
You don't know what that kid's capable of. They don't know what they're capable of.
No.
They're just a kid trying to learn how to count. Why do they need to be put in a group? Or,
Right.
I mean, we got kids 5 years old. They're being drugged. They're being, basically, they're being told they can't achieve.
Right.
I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
You're
when you put somebody in a box and you say you need XYZ because you're not able to make it on your own. A, I think that's racist.
Yeah.
And B, I think that you're already putting that kid at a disadvantage rather than if you make them feel like they can do it. And that's an equitable opportunity. You bring kids in and you make it so that they're able to learn, give them an environment in which learning is rewarded and not you're not making the grade. We gotta put you on drugs. Let me tell you about an achievement gap. All right, Andrew?
sure.
So we think that this achievement gap here is terrible. Let me tell you about a little bit of time that I spent in a country south of here called Haiti.
Yes, you were there after the earthquake, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I went down 6 months after the earthquake to do some demolition and rebuilding. The students there, you had children that were in schools. They were all private schools, and the children that were in school could do math. They could speak in their native language, Creole. They could speak in French, and to some degree English. And the people who could not afford the private schools, they could speak Creole, and they were pretty much destined to be in utter poverty the rest of their life. That's an achievement gap.
Mm-hmm.
You have kids that cannot attend school because every school is a private school. Here, you have the ability to go to school publicly, a public school or a private school or a charter school, or you go to a magnet school or you do homeschool. There are options. Granted, some of them are harder to get into than others because the government has made it that way.
Yeah.
But the achievement gap that we have in America is so much less than the achievement gap that other countries have to face.
Well, and I would take it this way. Here's the other thing, too. An education is earned, and I think we've lost. Today, education's seen as a right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be, but you don't walk up to a kid and say, here you go, here's an education.
Right.
We forget about the word rights. I mean, rights are endowed on us by our Creator. Freedom of speech, right to bear arms, right to double jeopardy.
Right.
Those are rights. Okay. Minnesota Constitution says that we should have a uniform system of public schools. It doesn't say it has to look the way it does.
Right.
But we basically have decided in the state of Minnesota, and I think this is pretty much nationwide, that if you want a high school diploma, you can get one for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to do is work and show up.
Yeah.
And we've lowered that standard and lowered that standard and lowered that standard and lowered that standard. So you tell me, for somebody to not have a high school diploma. Now, I understand things can happen in a family that are out of a kid's control.
Absolutely, and that's a whole other issue.
It is, and it's not going to be solved with a one-size-fits-all policy from somebody in Washington or St. Paul.
Right.
I got that. Okay. But if you really think about it, there is no excuse for somebody not to have a diploma or a GED. Now, I get it. You may not be able to do it on time, like I said, because of some circumstance that is out of your control.
Yeah.
But to me, it's sort of like, if you want a great education, it's right in front of your face.
Yeah.
And there's no focus on that end of it.
See, and that's the difference.
But the solution isn't more money, more money, more money,
Oh, no.
more free lunch. That's not what the problem is.
No, and even to say that education is a right. Well, even if it is, okay, say everybody is entitled to an education. It is still how you handle that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, somebody could put you in a school, but they can't make you learn. Just like you have the right to self-defense, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily own a gun or a knife or whatever. You have
Negative
the ability.
rights.
You have the ability for the right to free speech, but maybe you choose to keep your mouth closed. You know,
Or not vote.
you can't make somebody exercise the opportunity that is afforded them through the rights that they have.
And we talk about, you talk about labeling kids and putting, one of the things, we're going to touch on another article here that talks about, by the way, this is the Sun Post or whatever it's called, Hometown Source. I want to say one more thing about that article real quick. And this is the comments from the guy in Robbinsdale. Now, I don't know this new he's been there a little bit.
Yeah.
What's his name? Jenkins?
Jenkins,
I
yeah.
don't know this guy. Okay, wouldn't know him if he was sitting next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to listen to his State of the District speech. And first off, his State of the District speech, and I'm paraphrasing here because there's not an exact quote, said the district is working. Now, you tell me if you're not alarmed by this. Working towards closing achievement gaps and creating equity, citing preparedness beginning as early as kindergarten and collaborations with the business community.
Wow.
Now-
Put those kids to work.
Kindergarten.
Yeah. Get working, kid.
Okay, I got a nephew who's in first grade. I'm
That's-
not interested in creating equity and his preparedness. You know what I want to know? I don't want to know he can spell his name.
That's good.
Yeah. He knows he's starting to put words together. He's a pretty smart kid. But that is not the place you start putting somebody on a track.
No.
This is a superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's my favorite.
Okay.
Quote. Now, this is Mr. Jenkins. Our district cannot complete its biological transformation until all students receive the benefits of our most rigorous academic offerings with a comprehensive experience allowing their interests to be explored, end quote. Now, Jay, you're good at translating educrat speak.
Huh.
Tell me what he just said right there. I'm curious. I have no idea what that
Well,
meant.
he's talking about-
What is a biological? Are we human? Are we science experiments here that are we creating dinosaurs or something? Where we're biological transformation?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Are we like Transformers? We change if we were in a
Yeah.
different shape.
I don't know. It's like putting a lion and a tiger together to make a liger, I guess. It's
Ligers and
it is crazy to think about, and let me again another story. I'm talking a lot today.
it's
That's
okay,
good enough.
it's good. I'll let you.
In the Robbinsdale district, I'll pick on them since he wants to speak up, and I had kids that went
That's
through
right.
that
You had
system.
2 kids who graduated there. Yep.
Yep.
I went there too.
Well, can you read part again about their interests, about allowing their interests to...
Okay. All students receive the benefits of our rigorous academic offerings with a comprehensive experience allowing their interests to be explored.
Allowing their interests to be explored. Let me tell you how their interests are explored. There are so few elective classes that my children were not able to select the elective classes they wanted to. Rather, they were placed in the elective classes that there were openings for.
Really?
Whether they were interested in it or not.
Now, can you give an example of what your kids wanted to do that they weren't? Do you remember what the classes were?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, there were some that are like entrepreneurship, which, is great. There's CAD. There's, things like that. Obviously, if you want to get into choir band, that's not an issue. You're able to do that. But when it comes to some of the other ones, there was like a video game design class. That's a popular one. I know my son wanted to get into that, and I think he was put into... I don't even remember. Put into. He did not select it. It was what was available.
So, in other words, he was put into an elective. That's an interesting oxymoron.
And I will even go as far as to say, he's there for 4 years. Not once was he able to get into some of the electives he wanted, or my daughter. They got maybe lucky on a couple of them, but there was one elective, I believe, that my son took twice because he was placed into it twice, not because he failed. So... That's your experience and interests at work right there in the Robbinsdale School District.
Well,
and this wasn't like 10 years ago. I mean, he graduated
your kids just
last
graduated,
year.
Last June.
Yeah.
Well, they're exploring too their unified district vision. I should mention they were participating in World Cafe sessions.
Wow.
Which bring together multiple other districts to discuss more equitable schools, blah, blah, and build toward goals laid out by the unified district vision. Well, what is that?
Yeah, what are these goals? They sound great.
Really? Do they really, Jay?
Wow. I'm all for setting goals. It's got to be good.
The Unified District, I'm getting this right from their website, ourdale.org. So you people out there who want to call me a child hater, hey, this is your district here, what they're focusing on. Robbinsdale Area Schools is committed to ensuring every student graduates. Well, they're not. Career and is college ready, even though not every kid will go on to college, not every kid will need to, not every kid will want to.
Right.
That's what they're committed to. We believe each student is limitless. No, you don't, because you put labels on kids, put blah, blah, blah. All right, I'll stop interjecting my own thing. We are committed to ensuring an equitable and respectful, whatever that means. What's a respectful education? Oh, I'm interjecting myself again. Focusing on strengths related to. Now, remember, these are kids, some of whom as young as kindergarten. Okay, and I just want to say that because there's a big focus on social stuff in school now. Social engineering.
Yes.
There's not enough black kids in this school. Well, you know what? Are the kids learning or aren't they? I mean, how come that's not the most important thing?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what they're focusing on. Now, you tell me where education comes in any of this.
Okay.
Race, culture, ethnicity, home or first language, national origin, socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, age. They're all kids. Religion? I thought you couldn't talk religion. Physical appearance. So those are the strengths that we're focusing on.
Wait. Continue the list.
Oh, there's more?
Yeah, right. Math, science,
Oh, no.
reading.
There's nothing like that.
No.
No.
What? Wait, what?
No.
Wait, what? No?
Nope.
They don't list those.
No.
Not one. Not at all.
No, it's. Oh, and by the way, ability is another one.
Okay.
So does
Wait
that
a second.
cover all
I
that?
thought that you couldn't judge on ability. I thought that we had to close the achievement gap.
Yeah, I guess not.
Oh,
So
goodness.
there are 4 key goals. Implement policies and practices that open pathways to academic excellence for all students. Oh, zippity-doo-dah. So what, you didn't have open, you had closed pathways before this. Utilize culturally responsive teaching and personalized learning for all students. Personalized learning.
So we
That's a
need a
new
teacher-student ratio of 1 to 1.
What's a culturally responsive teacher? Exactly.
Yeah.
Number 3. Boy, this is a new idea. Engage family and community members. Oh wow!
My mom never showed up.
Yeah.
That was the
I
problem.
was homeless. I don't know. We weren't engaging them, I guess, before this. Engage and empower students by amplifying student voice. I'm going to give students their voice. It's our job to teach. It's your job to learn. There's your voice. The more time we waste on, now it's one thing in a civics class
Yep.
or something like that. It's not the job of students or teachers to organize walkouts. It's not their job to be political. It's their job to teach stuff.
I would say at the very worst, if you're a teacher and it's your job to oversee the school newspaper, you're giving students a voice. Fantastic. You know,
Well,
you're
and
having healthy discussions in class,
That's
whatever.
different.
That's different. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
You have to do that. I agree. I think that is critical.
Yeah.
And I think, again, student participation is great. Student voice, I sort of go, at that. Because, quite frankly, the inmates can't run the asylum.
Right.
You think the nuns in Catholic school cared about student voice? No. But I guarantee you those kids learned.
Mm-hmm.
And if those kids got out of line, there were consequences.
But if their job is to get
Not that I
people-
advocate that necessarily, but,
So they're getting people ready for the real world, right? To go to college so that you can get a job. Now, you name me how many countries, how many companies is it their goal to make sure that their employees, that they give their employees a voice in the way they do in little ways. You know, they might have like a suggestion box or whatever, fill out this survey. We want to hear from you. But really, at the end of the day, when you look at the larger way that a company is run, how much voice do the employees have over the way the CEO and the board want to take the company?
Yeah, pretty much none. Policy-wise, they have a voice.
Yeah. But
I could tell you in my years at Best Buy, and I think the company was a little slow, a little reactive to things. But I remember doing surveys like that about company policy
yeah.
and some changes being made because of it. And I think it would fostered good, healthy discussions, just like it would in a classroom.
Exactly.
But we didn't have a voice over what stores were going to be opened or what products we were going to sell. Or
No.
Somebody with knowledge on that made forecasts, presented it to the board or the CEO or whoever made the ultimate decision. And I'm not quite sure who that is necessarily, always in a big company.
Right. But my point is...
Yeah, your larger point is
school-
that's not preparing you
Right.
for the real world. Yeah. I'd say another thing, too. I always heard one of the things I'm a big believer in is individualism.
Yeah.
That you can't... The more I get into business, the more I've lived, the more I see how much group work takes time away from... It's so unproductive. And
Yeah.
I don't want to hear somebody's opinion. That's not what I mean. But I've been in situations where, and I remember being told this in college, you got to learn to work in groups. Mr. Richter, you have to, that's what these companies are looking for. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You get a company and work in a group. It is a surefire way to get angry, to get frustrated, to want to kill everybody, to parachute in with a machine gun. Companies are going away from that.
Figuratively and not literally.
Right.
Yes.
Companies are going away from that. They're seeing how group work is unproductive. Because let me tell you what happens in a group. You got a group of 6, 2 people are doing all the work.
Yep.
4 people are on their cell phone. Okay? They're having meetings. Nothing's getting done.
Yep.
That's group work. Individualism is what you want to teach. You want to teach people to take the initiative. You want to teach people to not be group thinkers, to be difference makers. And I think there's way too much of this go with the flow attitude. There's one right answer. There's one. When I was in college, if I heard the term group work, I got so upset. Just like, I am not here to rub elbows with the person next to me. That's not what I'm paying you for.
Right.
I am paying to get an education. You tell me the stuff I need to learn, I will go apply it. Okay? That's my job. My job is to take in the knowledge and go take it with me.
Yeah.
So there is that is the most. I mean, I am sorry I'm going off the deep end here, but if I hear collaboration or something like that, just one more time, I mean, I'm ready to jump off of a cliff if I hear that. That is not what the real world is like. That is not how we got entrepreneurs. They didn't sit around. Henry Ford didn't sit around one day with a group of 10 people and decide to build a car. No, he had the initiative and the vision, and he hired people to carry it out. So just, God, Thomas Edison didn't have a group of people zap themselves with electricity. I mean, come on. So it's that entrepreneurial spirit that I can do it, that I think is so coached out of people today.
But yet I think our kids today are more ready for that than ever before, but our schools aren't teaching it.
Right. The technology has knocked down the barriers. I think they are ready for it. They are ready to grasp that, but that's not being, whoops. Didn't mean to throw my phone at you there, Jay. You're right. That it is, they're, again, put in a box, put in a group. Expectations might be lowered or raised based on it. And it's just frustrating. Now, here's another article here. Where the hell is this? Twin Cities. Where did I send that to you, Jay?
It is from TwinCities.com.
All right, Now this is last summer.
It is entitled, 15 years later, Minnesota schools are more segregated and achievement gap has barely budged.
Now, first off, I object to the term segregated.
Okay.
Now, remember, public schools have to take who lives by them. If they happen to be in a black neighborhood, that school is not segregated.
Right.
Okay,
they're not saying that Whitey can't come to the school.
Right.
They're just saying, this is who lives here. It's the neighborhood school.
It's a black neighborhood. It's a Hispanic neighborhood. It's whatever it is.
And it's always mixed to some degree. It's just not to the level that their numbers say it should be.
It's not this. It's this idea that we're going to Met Council the schools. We're going to have everything be equal. We're going to have no differences. We're going to have, which is absurd. It is totally ridiculous. Okay, now, so they've grown more segregated, which is not true. It's just, those are the kids who live there now. Minnesota now has more than 200 schools where students of color make up 90% more of their own. Boy, I have a hard time believing that. But whatever. I mean, I have no information that says that's wrong. That seems very high to me. But I wanted to find something else here. This one talks about testing as a means of achievement gap, and the numbers, believe me, are no better than they are anywhere else. Percentage of Minnesota, the MCAs. So this is a state thing. We can't blame the federal government for this, although I think this might be a residual of No Child Left Behind or whatever law President Obama signed that continued that with some changes. I can't remember what that law was called. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
MCAs are given in grades 3 through 8 and once in high school. Would you be shocked to know that from 2014 to 2017, scores actually have declined pretty much among everybody?
Wow.
Now remember, that's with all the money, all the, even early childhood ed. Those third graders might have had early childhood.
Right.
Didn't make a difference.
Wow.
White students have declined by about a percentage point. Again, nixing the idea that white students are just achieving and achieving and achieving. All students have shrunk about 2 points. And statewide, black students, 29% passed are proficient in math, which is down 2 points from 2014. Now, again, there's a lot of things not to like about this. I hate Common Core and I oppose it and all sorts of other things. But
me as well.
But yet, I mean, we've seen a decline in this, not an improvement. And the decline's been across the board. I mean, it's not like anybody's exploded at the expense of somebody else.
No, everybody is suffering.
Yeah, listen to this guy talk. This guy's making an argument for vouchers, and I don't think he realizes it. I live in a poor neighborhood. I want my kids to have access to other options. Well, who's stopping you from that, sir? Probably the same people you're voting for. I want them to be with kids from different backgrounds. That has nothing to do with your education. What does that have to do with teaching and learning? I mean, are you saying that, teachers have to be a certain color now? I mean, I don't know. And you've got to love the way the Dayton administration has been picking on charter schools.
Oh, boy. It's not just him. I mean, you go ahead and read that first.
The education commissioner, Brenda Casilius, $75 million a year we now spend on programs to integrate schools. Integrate? I mean, they're talking like we're in the 60s. However, those fundings have no clear direction. Ms. Casilius, what she tried to do was get charter schools to submit these public schools have to submit these plans to get these funds. It's another fund that's held at gunpoint here from the state. And she's trying to make charter schools do the same thing. But charter schools have said, hey, we're not segregated. People are going in a lottery and choosing, we're not putting our names in a lottery. What are you talking about segregating? And a lot of charter schools go out of their way to get minority kids or cater to some, I don't know what you want to call it,
segment.
Culture. Yeah. So they're not segregating. Well,
no, they're not.
The way we would think of it, the way that word
Right.
is used, they
Right.
aren't doing that.
Right, exactly. But that's the call nowadays. I mean, I've seen it. I've retweeted things about it where they're flat out saying that charter schools, they call out charter schools more than they do magnet schools, but sometimes I see magnet schools thrown in there. But this has been over and over and over again, a trend that I'm seeing. This is not a one-off thing, that charter schools are responsible for the gentrification of our communities. And what that means is that, say, gentrification is like buying and renovating of houses and stores in deteriorated neighborhoods by upper and middle income people, in order to raise property values and displace the low-income families and small businesses. And so what they're saying is that by bringing in charter schools, you're upping the neighborhood and the poor kids can't get in, and so what do? No, that's not it at all. You're providing more opportunity, more options for your low income people. They might not be able to get out to a charter school in Minnetrista, but if there's one in Minneapolis, they sure can. And because it's charter school, they make their own rules and they can decide
To a certain degree.
degree. But I mean, they're not subject to the public school policies that have been causing failure, and that's why a lot of these are so in demand. Why there's waiting lists for, you go through the lottery process, and there's still a waiting list of people wanting to get in, hoping somebody decides not to go for some reason, because these schools are doing better than the public schools are, and the public schools don't have an answer, so they're just trying to say, oh well, they're basically race baiting the charter schools and saying, well, this is just about.
Well, they have an answer, but their answer has nothing to do with student achievement.
Right.
Their answer will be, well, we can't allow money to go to religious schools because they exclude kids.
Right.
So you can't take a voucher to go to a Christian school because they won't accept everybody, which is kind of the truth and kind of not.
But what parent of an atheist wants to send their kid to a Christian school? And if they do, I mean, really,
they know what they're getting.
They know what they're getting. Yeah, and there are Muslim schools, there are Jewish schools. I mean, it doesn't just benefit Christian schools.
Right. Don't we want productive citizens, or don't we? I mean, the question I've always asked the public school apologists is if and I've asked this before, I've never gotten a good answer, an answer I liked, and that's if the goal of going to school is to get a good education and be a successful adult, then why does it matter where a kid is getting it or who is teaching them? Mm-hmm. When that matters, when that is not only matters, but is in some cases is the most important thing, tells me the kid's education comes somewhere after that. Now, again, here's the thing about magnet schools. I have, within a school district, I get a little edgy about, because to me, first off, it's not a true charter school because they're not writing their own charter.
Right.
I think it's more of a way to go at what's trendy or retain kids, keep money somewhere. I'm not sure that's, and I think it's got its pluses and minuses within a school district. I mean, I think, that's just me. I think it's better if they're individually run than if they're part of some conglomerate of something. Mm-hmm. That's just an opinion. I don't know that turning every school into something like that is necessarily the best way to go either.
Right.
But my answer is, if charter schools and magnet schools didn't work, why does everybody want to get their kid in them?
Everybody, yeah.
I mean, if there's a chance to get your kid into something, I mean, I remember the Spanish immersion, when that first came in Robbinsdale, they had, you talk about a waiting list. I mean, you couldn't get in that school unless you had a sibling there or something for years. The STEAM school's working the same way right now. Yeah. I mean, you're not getting your kid in there. I mean, it's a 1 in 100. I mean, maybe not that, but I mean, it's tough. So tell me, public schools, if those schools aren't doing better or aren't, people vote with their feet and their dollars.
Yeah.
So you tell me, why that is working or why it's not. I mean, Beacon Academy, I remember when that opened. Now, they're small and they want to be small. No, they don't want to be a big school.
Right.
I mean, there is, I can't remember, I shouldn't say the numbers because a friend of mine's brother went there for a while, his little brother.
Yeah.
And I don't want to quote anything because I don't know. But I know it was not easy to get in, and there were way more people who tried to get in than could.
Yeah.
So I just come back to that. I mean, and I've never gotten a good answer to what is wrong. What is wrong if we're going to spend 10, 12, 15 grand a year on a kid's a year, okay? So say that's $200,000 from K to 12 for 13 years. If you can add early childhood or whatever it is, because, Education Minnesota wants to rip babies from their mom at birth and put them into academic readiness or whatever. Right. Why not give the power to the folks to go. I mean, I bet if we did that, we'd see the achievement gap shrink quick.
Mm-hmm.
I bet we would. If we would free people and administration and teachers from these, in every school, I think you're right, Jay, we still need some academic standards.
Yes.
I think there's some basics, especially elementary students, that they just have to have.
Yes.
Reading, writing, math, science, civics, history.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some basics that are musts. But wouldn't it be something if Bob's School of Woodworking popped up, Jenny's School of Hairdressing popped up? If that will never happen the way the economics are right now. They just aren't there.
Right.
Since most people can't go to a private school because they can't afford it or can't get there or whatever the case without a voucher or a tax credit.
Yeah.
It is going to be a limited number of people who could do it. So the economics aren't there to build it.
Right. I think, though, that is going to, at some point, it's going to be... like big box stores have kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, not completely, but
it's a declining business
definitely
model.
taken a hit because of the online marketplace. I believe that you're going to see the online marketplace of education open up, and it might start with secondary education, but I believe that at some point it's going to work its way back into elementary and high school level education. That it's going to be.
I guarantee you, it's going to happen.
I want to attend this school. I'm going to take their online program. How would that open? Imagine that for a moment, Andrew. The fact that you're not first of all, you got to get it through the education unions, which is going to be the toughest of all. But imagine being able to go and graduate from any school that you want in the country because you are able to use a voucher to get into any elementary school, high school, do online learning.
Well, and I'll even compare
amazing.
it.
But the system wants to go in the exact opposite way and have you in daycare and have you in that school building, like you say, from the moment you come out.
Right. They want you. It's more than education. It's social issues. It's social engineering. It's got nothing to do with whether you're learning the tools to be a successful adult. And you're right, it is going to go in high school. There are virtual high schools out there,
but they're
people
public.
Can't afford it. Yeah, or the private ones aren't affordable for the average person. But I'll tell you, look at what's happened in college. I mean, there are programs you can do and never set foot in a classroom.
Right. I think,
and that's not for everybody either. I mean, I should say this too. It isn't for everybody to take online. But what it's doing is it's popping up as an option. And I think that's the key. I don't think online learning is I know it wouldn't be the best for me. That's just me.
But when virtual reality comes into fruition, you can. It's like you're sitting in a classroom.
Right, go to meeting. It's almost like that. Yeah. I've done that when I worked for Best Buy. I did stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think it's. I think there are some things where that might not work for that require person being there. But I think for the most part, I mean, how many people learn something by watching a YouTube video today?
Right.
I learned how to put windshield wipers on my wife's car by seeing a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned how to, that's how I learned to take a battery out of my truck. I bought it. I can put it in myself now. So, I mean, what's wrong with learning about,
Absolutely nothing, That all the marketing lessons that I've learned, through watching YouTube videos, how to use different social media platforms, that's all great education. Some of it's terrible, but some of it's good, and you got to weed through it. There's a little more work. But imagine, just the thought of being able to be in a virtual classroom, you're wearing at some point, and now it's goggles, it'll be contacts at some point, but you can be in virtual reality. It'll look and sound like you are actually in a classroom if you want to be. Otherwise, you could do it probably just online.
Yeah.
And to get to the point, I'm just waiting for that first online educator that is going to give a price break compared to, if we can ever get to a voucher system.
Prices will come down, though, as this becomes more accessible.
And that's the thing. Imagine if we had the free market in schooling, and it wasn't necessarily based on what school is prestigious or not. I mean, there'll be some aspect to that, but just to be able to learn the things you need, attend a good school, and you might not ever have to step out the door into a dangerous community.
Yeah.
You can stay in
You might
your
not
house
have to go to a place where you can get shot. Here's another thing. Can we expand the definition of a teacher for a minute? I kind of just have an issue with learning about business, marketing, business law from somebody who's never worked for a business. I mean, why couldn't you we've talked about alternative teaching licenses. Right. You and I have talked about that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, this maybe isn't the best example. I'll use President Trump as an example.
Okay.
Before he became president, he's done a lot in business. I mean, not everything's been a success.
Right.
I mean, he's taken advantage of bankruptcy law. He's also bought bankrupt companies. I mean, he's had his hands in a lot of stuff, real estate, casinos, you name it.
Yeah.
But what if he decided, I'm going to open up, and I don't want to pick on Trump University because it's a bad example. I'm just somebody like him said, I want to create my own class and teach what I did. Teach how did you get where you are, where you were successful in these things, or pick your entrepreneur. It doesn't have to be the president, but he's just the most obvious one to think of.
Right.
I mean, pick somebody who is successful in acting, or is successful in a great doctor, or lawyer, or teacher, or something of that, manager of a hotel, and they wanted to create their own program for people interested in that as a career. Isn't that as good or almost better of an education? I mean, I could show you a real balance sheet. Like, I'm a business owner, Jay. I could teach. I think I could teach a class on how to open up a business. I know what to do and what not to, what it's expected, what's unexpected, what permits you have to get, what laws you have to comply with, how to do your taxes, how to fill out an 1120, I mean, there's so much that can be done from a non-traditional point of view. I think my dad could have taught a class on adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying. He could have taught a class on calculus.
Yeah.
But I see YouTube videos as an example of and things like we want to do here at Community Solutions as examples of how something like that could. You and I could teach a civics class, Jay.
Oh,
we could teach it
easily.
We could teach it blind, deaf, and dumb. So why do you have to go to a traditional school to learn that?
You don't.
I mean, as long as you learn it, what difference does it make where you learn it from?
Well, that's where you get into the control aspect of government. They don't want to let go of control. They want to have it, as it says here in Minnesota, a uniform approach to education, and they can't control it when it gets that decentralized. But yet, that's the trend. That's where we're headed. And that point in the Constitution, I mean, it might have to change.
Well, and again, uniform system of education can be interpreted a lot of ways. I interpret it as there's X amount of things we want everybody to learn and know. And there's X amount of stuff you've got to know. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah.
You want to be a successful adult, okay? There's some things you just got to know.
You have to, yeah.
But to me, I don't interpret that as every school has to be the same, or every classroom has to be the same, or every teacher has to teach the same. I think that's where we've gone off the rails. Or there's some magic law we're going to write in St. Paul that's going to make everything perfect. I think that's where we've fallen by the wayside. And so again, I just come back to, you're so intriguing me with the online opportunities, and just the thought I had the other day of learning something from a YouTuber. I learned more about cars from YouTube and my father than I ever learned in the classroom.
Yeah.
I've learned more about, I'll be honest, I've learned more about civics from what you and I have done. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't learn nothing in school. I got a good education. I don't want to, not picking on
Right.
Cooper High. I learned a lot there. Okay. But it's not the be-all, end-all. And it can't be.
Right.
And you're right. The trend of the private sector is going one way. The trend of the public school, whatever you want to call it, cabal, I'll call it, is going. They're hanging on to the 50s and 60s.
Right.
And at some point, they're going to collapse under their own weight. I can't see it staying the way it is forever. I just can't.
I mean, look at it this way. We keep paying the school districts money. They keep levying us, and they keep asking for millions more every handful of years, and we don't see any change. In fact, we see things getting worse. The quote unquote achievement gap is staying about the same, but it's
$25 million buildings going up.
Yeah.
And even like you said, the trend is in the opposite direction. We won't need these $25 million buildings.
No, it's going to get decentralized. It's just a matter of time.
It has to. Technology is knocking down the barriers. 20 years ago, I've said this before. We'll wrap up in a sec. I've said this before. You and I couldn't do what we do 20 years ago.
Right.
We could not host our own show. We could not have our own podcast. A small group of people decided who was on the air and who wasn't.
Yep.
What's changed? Technology's changed. That's the only change that's going on.
Yep.
You still have the nightly news. You still have the newspapers. You still have magazines. What's changed is what we do.
Yeah.
In education, of course, government changes last. We all know that. But that is where I'm curious in 15, 20, 25 years where it's going to go. You talk about the cost of going to college and being in a dorm, and think if you could slash that. But like you said, the educrats don't want that.
No, but I think that, I've heard this in a couple of places, and I think it's possible that the next great recession that we come under is because of the student loan bubble.
Yeah, I agree. And if it hadn't been forgiven 25 times, it would already be here.
Yeah.
We just keep defaulting, and it's the number one thing right now people default on.
Yeah.
It's not a mortgage, it's not a car, it's nothing, it's student debt. And let me tell you something, how valuable is an education if you come out of it, and it takes you 20 years to get out of the hole that you were in? Mm-hmm. How valuable was that? And I go back to the jobs that are in demand. Electricians. You walk in as an apprentice,
Yep.
they'll pay for your schooling, and you get a good job when you're 21.
And how many people go to college for something and that's not what they're doing?
Yeah. Hey, you're one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So am I guess. I mean, I never graduated.
Well, I guess to a point I am. I went to school for music.
You're doing that to a point.
I'm doing that. I'm not playing Baroque music or
teaching it
classical
anymore.
music. Yeah. I'm not doing that, but yeah.
Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Now, folks, we'll wrap it up with this. We always wrap it up with this. Again, we're Community Solutions. We're all about ideas. We're all about and having fun while doing it. Mm-hmm. We have a blast, don't we? So now, again, you see issues in your area. You're thinking about running for office. You're thinking about doing those things. You contact us, Jay. Where do you do that?
You can email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com.
And we are everywhere on the internet, aren't we?
Yeah,
Twitter.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Again, COMM Solutions MN.
Yeah.
You can find us out there.
Spotify. Did I say it right this time?
Spotify, yeah. You can get this podcast just about everywhere. Well, I mean, not everywhere, but iTunes, Spotify.
I've been everywhere.
Google Play Store. The major ones, podbabble.com is the great podcast network we're a part of.
Yes.
We're so thankful for them putting us on, I'll tell you. But, I mean, that's our path. That's what we've decided our path is, I'm telling you, we are at the precipice of like a huge revolution. And I don't mean a bloodthirsty revolution. I mean in education, in politics, in business. We are at a place where things are going to change. And maybe not overnight, but we're not going to recognize the world that we had when we were younger. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. In some ways it is, if we let the big government crowd dictate how that goes. But if
I thought we defeated communism.
Yeah, well, not entirely, unfortunately.
No, it went into something else.
But here in this land, the land of opportunity, right now, we have the Wild West out there with all this stuff coming online with artificial intelligence and with virtual reality and artificial reality, all augmented reality. You know, we've got all this stuff that we kind of get to dictate how this goes from here on out. And if we let the wrong people make the rules going forward, we're going to live in a very constricted society that does very little for human greatness and ingenuity and freedom, and does a whole lot for the people that already have a ton of power and a ton of money. I know they like to kind of paint us freedom people as the ones that want to hold on to power and money and all that, because we believe in people's ability to go earn money, to be able to make the living they want to live the way they want to live. But really, it's the people who currently have control and have money that are scared of losing it and are going to do what they can to hang on to it. So with that, if you're thinking of running for a school board, you want to get on to a commission with a school district, or with a city, or with a county, or you want to podcast or write a blog like we do, get a hold of us, email us, share our stuff with people, because it's how people are going to find out about what's really going on. And it's not going to be us pressing the issue that gets this won for all of us. It's going to be all of you deciding something needs to be done and doing it. It's about 20,000 strong. It's about building a farm team. A farm team that is going to make a difference at every level in this state. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we love you guys, and we can't wait to interact with you out there in Minnesota as we're going around the state. Ask us to come out and talk to you. We'd love it. So there you go, Minnesota. We love you. Now it's your turn to get